I'm Bill. This is my basement. These are my friends.
Making it weird.
I am making it weird, but it's fine.
Really breaking the fourth wall for me.
Yeah. And I wanted to ask you if y'all wanted to introduce yourselves.
My name is Shanna. Hello.
Hi, Shanna. What do you do in the world?
I work at a New Seasons. That's how I know you.
Is that a grocery store?
Yeah, it's a grocery store.
Yeah. Context.
Yeah.
Cool.
I'm so nervous.
Yeah.
Who, in a way, are funding part of this podcast. At least through several of the members of the table.
That's very true.
Indirectly. I want to be clear, indirectly.
That's very true.
We just get paid by them, and then,
Yeah.
Hi,
I'm Connor. I sell cheese for a living, and do other nerdly things outside of that, like make books and play D&D with these folks.
Cool.
Yeah.
I'm Will. Hi, everybody again. I teach a bunch of nerdy things. I also play a lot of D&D with a bunch of nerdy people. So, yeah. Physics, astronomy, sewing lately. It's been new. It's fun times.
Sewing? What are you sewing?
Currently tiny Barbie outfits for class.
I'm
More
so
like
glad
I'm
that was your
direct.
answer.
More like I'm
Yeah,
helping
okay.
direct other people in prototyping, and what they are currently prototyping is tiny outfits that happens to be for Barbies.
Suits? I'm hoping they're space suits.
I mean, I hope that one of them does it, but they have 3 different body types for their Barbies, and they're like figuring out different outfits based on them. So they have one class that's like a history of fashion, one class is the design, and then mine is a prototyping class that lives in like a maker space that I've helped create.
Whoa.
So nerds, but with Barbies apparently.
We're going to be doing roughly the same thing, except with a world.
Yeah, that sounds
today.
fun. I'll prototype the fuck out of a world.
Yeah. We're going to be
First
sewing
that bomb's happening.
So are...
a world.
Let's do it.
Oh,
Prototyper.
got it. You got that.
Mm-hmm. So on that note, please introduce yourself.
My name is Ashley. I teach little girls how to kick dicks. No, I teach violence prevention. I don't actually teach that.
Like you go from
like...
kick dicks to violent prevention.
Hey, that's one end of the spectrum, man.
Kick dicks for America.
I like that.
I would vote for that.
Yeah.
Dick kick 2020.
Okay.
Richard
Kick,
actually. He's going
I write stuff. I play music. I do massage therapy. I don't know.
You're a mother.
I'm a mother.
That's right.
I am a mom.
Go back to telling us about those whale dicks.
I mean, what are they called again? Aren't they called dorks, right?
Yep.
Yeah, dorks, right.
Mm-hmm.
So we all are whale dicks then.
Okay. Just giving in.
We're starting
I'm
off.
sure you will learn.
What did you expect?
You will learn who I am in this process.
Yeah.
And I'm done now.
So
And I don't smoke cigarettes.
to be oh my god.
Just
Do for our
It's a choice.
for clarity for our viewers, how do you spell your name?
ASHLEY.
And that will be relevant in one moment. Ashleen.
Yeah,
How you doing?
hi, I'm Ashleen. I think it's kind of funny that Ashley and Ashleen are sitting next together, and then Will and Bill. That's going to be really confusing.
Oh god, yes.
You know, you guys are good, though.
Do we have
over
name
there.
tags?
No.
Yeah, just like, my name is. No, I also work at a New Seasons. I cook in the prepared foods department. That's pretty okay, I guess. I'm also a student. I play a lot of tabletop games. One of my favorite games to play outside of D&D is Magic: The Gathering. I really enjoy that.
Nerd.
Yeah, what can I say?
Are you excited about the new merging?
I am, but like I don't know how to feel about it at the same time.
Okay.
Yeah. I actually just built a really awesome commander deck that is a Troxon. It's Infect, so everyone's gonna fucking hate me when I go to Magic Night next time. But that's pretty much it.
Cool. I'm so excited to have you here as well as like every week. I mean, I very much hope that you all like this enough to stick around. I'm really stoked for this process, and I've never done it before. So
Fuck, I'm out.
So Microscope. We're going to be world building today. The meat of the game is us creating periods and creating events, and events fit into periods. Periods are long stretches of time, where events are, much shorter stretches of time in comparison.
Like scenes versus episodes?
Yeah, a little bit.
Or scenes versus seasons?
So what the game also has that you're supposed to play out inside a Microscope that we are not, because we're using D&D to play those out, are scenes, right? So there are periods, there's events, and there's scenes. Periods are the larger stretch of time. Events, middle ground. Scenes are like a blip in time,
okay,
right?
so
Where you can get into the
skipping-
nitty
we're
gritty.
Skipping. All right.
So from what I've understood, and tell me if this is accurate, but like we might have something on a large scale being like the Spanish Inquisition, right? And then events within that, you may have like battles or pieces or something like that. And then what we ultimately narrow down on are like individual scenes that potentially would filter into that history or the slave uprising
Right.
or whatever.
Yeah, and so the scenes, you know, we're gonna play those out, and we'll get into all the specifics in a little bit. But before the actual meat of the game exists, there are 4 steps that we need to go through. It's kind of like setting the context for what we want to build collectively. So we create the big picture, then we create bookend history, then we create the palette, which is add or ban any ingredients to our world. And then there's the first pass, the really like creating the just the bare bones of the timeline that we're creating. So let me tell you about the big picture. The big picture, essentially, you brainstorm like a really simple overview of the history you want to play, and it is a phrase. So I'm going to give you an example of something that they say in this. It says 3 nations are united as a single empire. Okay, that's. And it's supposed to be ridiculously simple. Like, it's almost supposed to feel a little awkward that it's that simple.
Like, what are those nations? What is this empire? But we fill that in later.
And you just got to the second part. So you're supposed to ask all the what, where, when, why, and how questions off of that. So what I just read was 3 nations are united as a single empire. Well, what kind of nations are they? Feudal kingdoms, primitive tribes, modern superpowers, stellar clusters, colonies on an alien world. Like, all of these things we have to sort of flesh out together in a dialogue, right? Or like, but someone's also attracted maybe to refugees, carve out a new life in a distant land, and then you ask more and more questions about that: the what, where, when, why, how. A new force changes society, wiping away the old values. Okay, so once we all whittle that down into something that we want collectively, then what they landed on at the very end was religious refugees carve out a new life in the fertile land beyond the wastes. Okay, so that essentially encompasses the entire history of our world. So then from there we go to bookend history. So the bookend history is the beginning of all that is according to us, and the end of all that is according to us. So it's the start of your history. It doesn't have to be the beginning of the world per se, you know, like the earth cools, then the dinosaurs came. It doesn't have to be that. It could be just what we want the audience or us even to like know. So the start and the end. So we create those bookend histories, again, collectively. And I keep saying collectively because once we get into the meat of the game, we get into turn-based play. And so when it becomes Connor's turn, when it becomes Shanna's turn, when it becomes Ashleen's turn, you and you alone get to speak. You and you alone get to create. And then once you do that, then it moves on to Ashleen, and you get the same, spotlight. Right?
You already screwed
You
up
already
names.
did it.
What did I do?
Ashleen
You
again.
called her
God
Ashleen.
damn it. We got Ashleen and Ashleen though, so
Yeah, we
50%.
We'll totally edit it out. Okay.
Can we actually just have like a title bar with like Ashleen, Ashley?
That would be
Oh,
fucking
yeah,
great.
That'd be nice.
Okay, good.
Split it up.
Okay. So then once we
Because you don't
create
smoke. Hey, shut up.
once we create the bookend history, then we get to what they call the palette, which is add or ban ingredients. So this is the list that we collectively say, okay, definitely yes, we want this in our game. And then definitely no, we fucking do not want this in our game, you know. And these are like, you know, really core rules. Like, all of us have to abide by these rules. You know, if Shanna gets to a point where she's creating a period on her own, and she creates something that has something in the no list, someone can call her on it. Does that make sense?
So we're not allowed to talk during other people's turns.
Well, you know, the other thing too, and we'll get into this more and more in the details more and more, but you can talk in other people's turns. You just can't add anything. You can ask questions. You can ask clarification questions. You just can't then go off and say, because here's what I'm imagining. That's not their role at that time, right? Yeah. But what you can do is when you're done making the period that you're doing, or you're done making the scene, and it gets to Will, and Will found your period or your scene very, very intriguing. Then he can, in one way or another, you know, then you can basically build a period directly after that period that relates to that period. Or you can build a scene inside of your period that directly relates to that period, right? So you can, basically the whole game is playing off other people's ideas slowly but surely. So the palette is the yes, no, you know, like laying down the law of the world, right? And then there's the first pass, which is basically all of us get to I think create our own periods and or scenes, and then once that's done, then we get into the main play of the game.
Cool.
So,
I'm sorry, it's like signing over here in the background.
I mean, yeah.
He was conducting.
And you know what? Let's get in here. Get in here. Oh, God.
Just-
Oh, he's fixing his hair. I love it. So everybody, this is Fisher. Fisher, everybody. Fisher is kind enough to just be here and add his like audio expertise, his video expertise, and basically just his big old brain as it is, and it's been completely awesome. I very much appreciate your silent partner.
Refuses to be actually heard.
Yeah. So anyway,
You're an
I
audio
want to say
vampire?
thank you, and I also wanted to introduce you because you've been fantastic. So,
Have fun.
yeah. Okay. So, I think this is also useful. We're gonna put this up on the board just in case anybody wants to write on it to like brainstorm. Shanna, would you grab those dry erase markers? And feel free to pull. No, just put it right over there, and just feel free to like pull it. We should really explain your hiccup.
Oh yeah.
Very unique hiccup.
It'll just disappear after a while.
Okay.
For everyone.
Do you want us to edit
No, I mean
it
it
out?
won't disappear. People just won't notice it.
Oh no!
If you want to edit it out, that would be a lot.
I actually want us to keep a
of
running
time.
tally on the screen.
Mhm.
If you're drinking along with us today.
No,
right. You get a prize.
I'm asking you if you would like us to edit it out. Okay, cool. Yeah, you're like,
God,
I
I
don't care.
wouldn't do that to you.
Okay, cool.
I don't want to ban that
Edit it back
ingredient. I want to keep that
I don't.
ingredient.
You don't want to ban that
I
ingredient.
don't want to ban that ingredient.
Okay. All right. So, what kind of world do we want to play in? And also keep in mind that we will be playing Dungeons and Dragons. We will be using that, system, that set. It doesn't necessarily mean that we can't collectively say, you know what, we just want to play with humans. Just humans, no other, fantasy races or anything like that. That's totally possible. We can make that decision based off of what we want to create. But creating something like, I don't know, just I guess keep it in the context of Dungeons and Dragons, essentially.
I agree. I think we can be creative with that, but in terms of like keep in mind the mechanic.
And I'm just gonna, you can either use that or use this, but I'm basically tossing this at you just in case you guys want to write some notes. So, I'm really interested in a high magic setting to the point where magic is looked at as technology.
So more like an Eberron kind of feel without being Eberron.
Totally.
Cool.
Like an arcane-based technology where
Yes.
everything's got like...
I like that, although I'm slightly biased because I've been wanting to play Wizard for a long time, so I'd be like, yeah,
I'm
nerd,
totally down.
engineer, wizard. I mean, that yields to my strengths, but I I really like that. I know I've tended to play in a low magic world for a while now, and I would like to see our collective imaginations pick that and fuck it.
Yeah.
But I'm also down for whatever.
Yeah.
But I would say I'll give a second vote on that. What do you guys think?
I like the idea of magic as technology, just because like any technology that is that far outside of your bounds of knowledge anyway is kind of magic. So
yeah. One thing that I would need a little help on though, because I don't want this to become just an Eberron campaign, is I'm curious to know like how magic got to that point.
Sold. Not worry about it.
That's something we could develop with our like periods and stuff.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
Like, doesn't have to start off with like technology exists in this world. But...
Perfect.
And also like because we talked when the four of us got together for like our first meeting, and we'll integrate this I think as we get deeper into the nitty gritty. But I liked the concepts we were talking about, sort of like a deep post-apocalyptic world kind of feel at some point.
I remember that.
Yeah, and I would love to see like maybe there's a rise and fall of magics, right? Like maybe we talk about like a pinnacle where things have been like science as technology or magic as technology, and maybe I want to talk about the build, and I want to see a fall afterwards, like maybe where things have reverted back to something low magic. So we could also play multiple different campaigns through we're finding remnants of these high magic things that we experienced, or we're at the peak of it at one point, and then maybe through our own actions something really terrible happens.
Oh, we broke it.
Yeah.
I have a question as to how that functions. Does it function like technology where most people don't know the ins and outs of it, and it actually it almost makes it invisible the way that it functions? Is that
correct?
That could make it less present and less visible magic, which could kind of in effect make it low magic almost if it's going to play out that way. Do you know what I'm saying?
Well, it's like this. It's everywhere, therefore it doesn't seem like it's anywhere. Right? It's
But like give me a practical example.
Electricity in people's homes.
Yeah, well, I would say like in using Eberron as the example, right? I'm correct because I haven't played a ton in Eberron, but they basically had like train systems, like levitating train systems that were based upon elementals,
imprisoned elementals.
So it's like people didn't know that was happening, but it was like that was what was running the engines, that was what like the rails they ran on, and so we just jump on the train, right? But we're not thinking about like all of what's going into it.
In effect, is that going to be like? Because it's already like systematically in place and imprisoned or just being used, is it going? I worry that it's going to be a little bit less creative, that it's going to be like,
well, it sounds just sounds like normal. Like it's like everything's magical, so nothing's magical.
Yes.
But what I like about that is like there's like we can explore tapping into what it actually like how the world actually works that most people take for granted and like build off of that. Yeah.
The actual magic.
Find the magic in every day.
But it would also place our characters in more of like a hacker space where like we build these characters and have this core group of people that know actually how this functions and like, oh, can we like use this to our own ends or like subvert it? Like, because everyone has a smartphone, but not everyone can use their smartphone to access somebody else's database and be like, I don't know you anymore.
So like say all the magic in the world came from a certain element and most of the world's taken that for granted. But like our group finds like another element that manipulates that element or something. I don't know.
Yeah, it sounds like there's a lot of possibility to play with it, but I'm not too worried about potentially like losing the creative element to it because I think that it would give us more opportunity to describe how things are going down, right? So we might have a train system that just is part of the game, but when prompted or if one of us feels like we want to dive deeper, like, hey, why is this happening? Then we get to explore what mechanism drives that, right? Or look into that creatively.
I like the keeping aesthetic, like as far as like the magic could come from anywhere. And like we could be like a society like losing that magic. And like most people are like, why is that I like taking for granted, why is that magic being lost? You know? I don't know.
No, this is like very fascinating.
Or we could even be like an underground like organization that uses a different like magic that's technically illegal for our own ends, like something like that. It's not necessarily that we're like, you know, antagonists or anything, but we're like working outside of like the normal functions of society and magic.
What if it was like set today and we're like, oh, you can turn off and on the lights. just like, we all take that for granted. But what if it really is actually run on magic?
Like everybody's using it all the
Yeah.
time and not realizing.
Like right now.
Yeah.
Like
I mean,
Yeah.
create an alternate today.
Yeah. That's
Okay,
kind of-
so that's one sort of, I guess, facet or theme that I wanted to explore in this next campaign. Sounds like you guys are pretty thumbs up on that. Plus, I like what you said about using the ebb and flow of the rise and fall of that particular set of like technology using magic.
Yeah, and I think we can. It's a lot of
Very
availability
real-time
for the
vibes.
different scenes we could play. So if we
Mhm.
wanted to be in a lower magic setting at some point, but still within this world we've created, it could be towards the beginning when magic is just being discovered,
Mhm.
or towards the end when we fuck shit up.
When you say lower magic setting, we wouldn't get rid of classes that can use magic. It would
No,
just be
no.
less people have access to it. So
yeah,
it
it would
the
be more
wizards and such.
rare. Like
Yeah.
magic users, magic items, things like that would be potentially more rare.
Mhm.
So our characters would be more of like that's what sets us apart as heroes, right?
Yes,
Or something.
someone cast the light spell, and villagers would probably be like, "Whoa, haven't seen that in."
Versus like, oh, is that
my
just
life.
a cantrip light spell? Pff, bam, light fireball. It's like, okay, sorry.
Yeah.
I mean, especially you talking about like an arc, it's really like that arc of the 20th century where like, oh, we didn't have a whole lot of technology, but we started with steam and like gas piping and then like
Industrial
electricity
Revolution.
Yeah.
and like all of a sudden we're at this like sort of peak where like everyone has everything, but like our resources are dwindling so fast.
Mm-hmm.
It's relatable.
It's relatable, but we can also like
Messages
Set
about
it-
climate change. Yo.
set it back somewhere
Magical
else.
Where there's scarcity of magic. Basically,
Yeah.
that's what you're talking about. And that's interesting. So
Yeah.
I'm working with that. In a
So, tell me about other things that big picture thematics that anyone's interested in right now, besides the magic thing.
Big picture thematics that I kind of want to like that I think could live in this world in a lot of interesting ways based on what we talked about. Like I would really love there to be some sort of revolution element at some point, or some like big period that occurs where there's like an overthrow of a government or an establishment, or whether we are a part of that or deal with the effects. I just like that as some sort of larger theme, like a breakdown of that civilization or something like that.
Mhm.
Or like a flip of
It would be fun to not be necessarily like the classic part of the revolution.
maybe not the
Some
core
kind
of it, but like
maybe
ancillary.
maybe some kind of like in between
Mhm.
party where
Like
we're
Life of Brian status.
yeah,
We're just like in the background of all this shit happening, like doing side quests.
I like that. I like that. That's
Like
fucking
shit's just going on
hilarious.
around us. Like
No one knows
crazy.
Yes,
no one knows that
please.
we
That's
saved
my
the
vote.
world.
You've already got my vote.
Yeah,
Right
nobody
there,
knows that we're
Life of
saving the
Brian.
world over here or something like that. But there's just like all of this other big shit that's happening.
Yeah,
and then
but we
we're-
like do like a side save the world, like Buffy status, and nobody knows.
Yeah, it's like, oh fuck me, I'm sorry. Just like stop this demon from coming back
Yeah,
from the
just
world.
stop
They're
the
like,
apocalypse,
they're like,
whatever.
"Viva
Yeah.
la revolution!" I'm like, fine.
Yeah.
You're like, yeah, cool.
Governments are changing hands in the background, and we're just like stopping like the rise of like Satan.
You know, Satan.
No big deal.
I like that.
Mm-hmm.
Too.
Yeah.
Okay,
Comedy.
so
Well, yeah, I mean, that kind of reminds me of like the Game of Thrones thing where there's like a million things going on, but then there's like the White Walkers,
Like, what the fuck is happening?
and there's only a
with
couple people who care about that.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah,
Everybody else
exactly.
is like,
Until they're about
that?
to.
That is the
and you're like,
side
no,
thing
we're all
that's
gonna
happening.
die, and they're like, no, but
But like
who
sometime in the
gets the
future,
crown?
this
And
is
you're like,
now.
no, but we don't care. You know?
Nobody gets the crown if we're all dead.
White Walkers
yeah.
are climate change. Oh fuck.
Yeah.
Assholes.
I'm
Yeah,
seeing
really
some
assholes.
continuity between our conversations already. This is great.
all right, so we've got to boil this down to one phrase, one sentence, and then we can ask the sort of who, what, where, when, why, and then kind of get it a little more specific even further.
Boil the theme down.
Mhm.
That
Yeah,
the
'cause
first-
right now
not to like the end result is like a longer
hugely
arc,
longer.
right?
Yeah.
Like I mean like the number 5 or whatever. Like but this is just like a positing like what was it 3 something. What is the first one?
The first one's big picture.
Big picture.
Mhm.
Can you read their example?
Got it. Well, Do you want me to read the original example or what they finally came up with?
No, the original.
3 nations are united as a single empire.
So is that what you're asking us for?
I am.
Right.
Is that the first bookend? Because is that like...
No, we do bookends around
Okay,
this event.
so
Okay.
like
Yeah.
an example would be like our the idea of like our climate change or like our magic energy change or
Yeah,
something.
I kind of
right?
had an idea. Like, what if they find something that is like the source that
Right.
like thrives their like civilization, right? Like they
Our
find like some
magics.
like ancient like arcane orb or something that they can like tap into, and it's what powers their city, and that's like that. And like instead of 3 cities coming together, it's like this is found and like sparks like basically like an industrial revolution type thing.
Yeah.
Like the source of magic.
That we all took for granted, sort of, potentially.
I feel like we can like.
I feel like we can go
that kind of
even
phrasing.
bigger than that.
Yeah, like I think like I agree. Like I think that's a piece, but I think like being very big, like we're just saying a statement of like the font of magic
Is found basically, or like
Something
is
like
tapped into, or
Mhm.
I don't know.
But I
So
wanna-
since we're also talking about revolutions and like all that, what if like we just go super big and magic powers these 2 city states, and like then we can delve deeper and like one city state gets like actually starts using it as technology, and the other one is like I don't know, but they like work off it.
Right.
But, like from the beginning, like we just have 2 city states that are powered by magic.
which
So you're positing us as being like just like after that's discovered, like or like because you were saying maybe like
Right, like
as
the
it's
so
being
like
discovered or
yeah.
before, like
And that
Yeah.
could be an event in that though, is that source of power is found, and that's how these 2 cities are powered.
yeah, it's
right,
already
Yeah.
gonna
and
be
that's
cool
like
ideas.
Like it's kind of like the idea of like okay, like one, you know, there's like one source of water, and like it's discovered that like these like we're 3 nations. Does it have to be 3 nations or maybe
No,
whatever
we
we
can do
want.
whatever we
But
want.
like
that
there's
was
like
the
example.
several
City-state ideas?
civilizations that are like we all realize it's coming from this common source,
Right.
right?
And I feel like I like that 2 city-state idea, because if you want to have like a revolution or uprising, that like opens interesting channels
Yeah.
to like the way they use the magic. Like if one uses it to like build
Mhm.
weapons to get more militant with it, and the other one's using it more to like, you know, fuel the economy and like help people's lives be better, and then generally just like improve like
Mhm.
existence.
Yeah.
I feel like that would cause like a clash if the other person's like, "Hey, you have shit, we want your shit." And
Right.
Capitalist magic.
Yes,
I feel like we have
capitalist
to
magic
talk about
problems.
like how it was discovered and
preachy.
how it's harvested. Like if it's a pool of so like water or something.
Well,
or
that
if it,
that will be definitely later in terms of
Mhm.
like when we're creating
I've been
periods
playing
and
Breath of the
events and
Wild,
whatnot.
so I'm just picturing
Okay.
these orbs
Yeah.
that you can find, like,
That'll
things
totally
like
come.
that.
The thing that I just came up with, I got it's like so short of a sentence that I'm thinking that I did something wrong. But I just came up with Eldritch Energies shape a people. Right. So and that would be like what I just came up with, like the big picture.
Mhm.
Okay, yeah.
No, I like that. I think there's a lot of questions that come up.
Yeah. So do we want to expand that a bit? Does anybody have any ideas to expand that a bit? Like.
Yeah.
How did it shape the people? You know.
Well, let's write down the who, what, where, when, why, how kind of concept, and what you're saying. Let's start with the what. Like, what do we want that Eldritch energy to come from?
Yeah.
Like, let's do that, and then we can kind of refine it that way.
Because that's going to determine how people like work with it and engage with it and fight over it.
Yeah,
Mhm.
sure.
I'd like
What,
that.
what is this energy?
I was gonna. Oh,
Where
sorry.
did it come from?
I was gonna. What if this energy is like something that's kind of like how our Earth has a core, but instead it's like they like tap into it by like drilling down, and that even could like fuel towards the like overusing it because they like dry it up.
It ends up being a limited resource.
This is like
You know,
this is
yeah,
the-
like-
I'm writing a fantasy novel series. This is like getting into the. This is fun. It's making me think about.
Yeah.
Nice.
Okay.
So you know what I mean? Like it's almost like they
Let's
like
do our
are
stuff.
drilling to like do whatever archaeological digs, whatever, blah blah.
Yeah.
They find like this like arcane energy in the earth, and they start tapping into it and realize they can use it as like fuel and like.
I
light
agree.
source and
I
stuff.
do like treating magic as basically oil in some way or another, right? Like
Right.
some
Yeah.
sort of physical.
Fuel.
I don't wanna drill
fuel
that.
I feel like if we're
resource.
making it okay, it doesn't have to be
Got an
drilled.
idea.
It doesn't
Wait,
like
what?
I want like on a mycological level. Like I want it to be like
Oh, yeah.
like an organism, like mushrooms.
Mhm.
Oh.
Oh, okay.
You know,
So it's like
that's
something
like-
that we like grow.
That's like actually holding everything together.
Oh, okay, but
Like
The force.
like a
Like, okay, I got it. So it's it's like a webbing of a sort.
It's a webbing.
Yeah.
Like in
And
the
it-
center? Like,
And it
or
doesn't
like-
just feed us, it feeds like
Or is it just,
all
like,
of the
spread the
plants,
entire
like
world?
all of the like it's like
Are you thinking like a network underground that just kind of goes everywhere, like a root system? But like,
well, the thing that because at first I was just like it would be cool if it wasn't just drilling because that seems really obvious.
oh
you know?
no, totally.
It would be really
I just-
cool to like have like some other layer, and then I instantly went to like that fungi sort of like mycelium.
Because
You
know,
like
like,
the
as far as,
largest
like-
life forms.
Like
on the
it's
planet
something that's like
that-
running over everything. Like it's on our, you know,
What if
and
it's,
it
like,
can,
string,
it can almost
like,
be like
like
on
we
our
found a
skin
way
too.
to
Like that would be
access
really
string,
interesting too.
yeah,
Like
string
you
that's
can,
how people use
Yeah,
magic.
string-
but you
string
can
theory.
harvest
Found a way
it
to
off of
access that.
everything because
Yeah.
it's an organ that
Quantum
stretches in
physics is
onto
magic in that
everything,
sense.
like on our surface,
Almost
even
like
our,
it
even
is
ourselves.
carbon, kind of. But
So
like,
you could, and that could be really interesting because you could really fuck with people by like trying to harvest energy off of them too. You know, like it's like
Yeah.
something that's all shared.
And that's
But
where the
like-
magic user
But
element
like, but
of
there are
D&D
like,
is.
Yeah,
po-
I was
but there are pockets of it that are like really
That's
concentrated, and like
Yeah.
like
That's
like
exactly
a
what I'm
mushroom. If
writing.
you find a mushroom that's like a fruit in the wild, that
It's
can be
good.
really
You're
concentrated
tapping
too.
in.
Do you know what I
And
mean?
then so
I don't
even
know,
if you're
because,
talking about
like,
on that level, that kind of gives
I'm
you a difference
scared to,
between like a
like,
fighter and a mage, because a
explore
fighter
too
would
much
have a
of the
lot
setting.
less of that
Mhm.
energy, like that stuff on them. But I'm assuming like a mage would have more because they can like use.
Yeah.
Right? Like I
Maybe,
mean, you
but
could do
Please
like
tell me
like
we don't go
different-
towards
there
midi
could be
chlorians, though, I
different
swear to God.
kinds. I feel like there's like different strains. Like you have a different like a physical power level. You can have.
I mean,
like
yeah, there's different classes of magic, so that would
Yeah.
kind of.
But I
But
like
also-
the idea of it being something that you can harvest in little elements off of a lot of places, and then there's like some places that are like,
DMT.
yeah,
I like
exactly.
And then
Magic
people-
is DMT.
And then maybe part of it is that people have found a way, like money. People have found a way to amass it. People
Right.
have found
Yeah.
a way to like store it.
Well, I like the idea
And
of
that's
a
where we get to the
mycelium
overusing part too.
because it is also if we're talking about people, like mycelia are a limited area. They do like kind of touch each other, but they're also like, no, like this is my resources.
Mhm.
So
They have their own space.
yeah,
And
you-
yet they're
and
connected.
It can
Yeah.
also breed
Yeah.
its own space,
yeah.
right?
Like there's the one in Eastern Oregon that's eating almost all the scrub forests.
So it can be used for good and evil.
Oh yeah, and I've
Yeah.
been thinking about that too.
It's
Like
a matter of
I
perspective.
wrote out like how did it shape a people? Well, it would. I mean, if we want to get general, it shaped a people for good and ill, because you know, let's just say we are using, for example, orcs and elves and goblins and all this stuff. Well, how did it affect goblins?
Right.
Were goblins actually people? And then this energy got to this people and then actually warped them over time and made them sort of golem-esque.
That's very human centric. Maybe we all started as something different and we went different directions once finding this eldritch energy. Like
Like we
shaped
started off as
everybody.
humans, and
No,
then it
or
kind of
we all
like
started
warped
as something
everybody.
entirely different that no longer exists, and we've now all been
Mhm.
We
branched
started
off by
off
it.
as mycelium.
Yeah.
We've been manifested.
We were just
So the
True.
bookend,
We're just
single
good for a
cell
while.
organism.
Well,
Yeah.
and that's interesting. Like just as an aside, like perhaps the myconids, you know, the little monster races,
Yes.
maybe they are the original people.
I like this. This is
Yeah.
good.
Okay, write that down.
Well, we'll get there.
I have
I'll
a
get-
request. Can we have bedpans so we can just pee in our seats?
The answer
You're not
is,
already peeing in
the
your
answer-
seats?
I know that exactly.
I mean, my bad.
Just when we see you on camera, just go.
I really want
Then
to
we
do that
know.
at least
We'll
one
know.
time during this entire
We're
thing.
gonna have a dirty
I
rotten
wanna pee.
scoundrels moment. You're just gonna be like, may I please go to the bathroom? You may. Thank you. Cool. So I like this from especially if we're connecting this back to like a physical kind of limited resource or something that replenishes, but maybe we eventually use it faster than it replenishes kind of idea. Oh, hey, Ashley.
Hi.
Just flip the hair. You got to roll her cigarettes though. So I can see that as like an ultimate end, right, for like the post-apocalyptic world element of like, right, we've gone too far in our industrialization and we've tapped out that source, and that would be a whole
Like
interesting.
over-farmed it, or
Yeah, like that's a whole other interesting element of
But
playing
it could
with
even
it.
be like maybe not even that we over-farmed it, but if it is like a little bit more like sentient, like it sounds like it can create its own
Yeah.
space, it could recede from us because it knows we're using it in a negative way.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
Yo, Dix. I
Ooh,
love
I like
the
that.
sentient element to it. Yeah, I was
Yeah.
thinking that.
Because like you're just making me like the way you're describing it would make me feel like if it knew that it was being used in a negative way, like we had like abused it, it would
Yeah.
be like, no, fuck you. And that could be where we go back into playing again, where we're using magic and someone like stumbles upon it and starts like tapping back into it, and it's like
You're cool.
And we
regaining the respect, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And like timeline wise, you get like you get like time periods where it's like really, really rampant and really like fluid with humanity, and so or like whatever we are. So
humanoids.
But there could be like
yeah.
so much more magic happening, and then we can go to a space where it's like very scarce and like almost nobody has it.
Like
and
it lost its trust.
People are
like,
sort of zombie-esque or
Mhm.
whatever, you know.
Picking
like,
up what you're putting down.
Yeah.
For sure.
Ooh, yeah.
I like that.
Okay, so let's focus
Like a
on
throwback
this
into the Dark
phrase.
Ages.
Who, what,
Yeah.
where,
So,
what, yes.
Eldritch Energies. What is this energy? We're saying that it is mycelium-based energy
It's like
that
its own entity.
from
Its own-
the Earth itself.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so how do we?
It's
So
a symbiotic
so how?
relationship
so-
with the planet. That we're
So
on.
then, how would you?
Yeah, I like
how
that
would you
wording.
describe that
Or parasite.
Eldritch energy in a phrase or description?
A symbiotic. What would I say?
A symbiotic relationship with the planet we're living on, between the planet and people.
Okay, so a symbiotic, natural Eldritch energy.
I think that'd be all.
Yeah.
Say that again.
What
A
does
sim-
Eldritch mean?
Eldritch
for the
means
people?
arcane or
Spooky.
or yeah or something something a little bit more esoteric than
Yeah.
than the energies that just exist, like, you know.
Well, what's cool about that, based on that a symbiotic relationship with the planet that we're on, it's like we can explore what that energy is
Okay.
as an organism itself or as an
Yeah.
entity itself.
I don't think we have to get too specific on this bait in a way
Yeah,
that I
but
want to
as
explore that
as a
through
sentence,
our scenes.
yeah.
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 In fact, I would love if like it's not like I want to play the game like a first chunk of the game at the peak, right? And maybe
Like-
we don't know what this energy is anymore, or
And
why an
explore
energy is
it.
going away, or revolutions are happening, or connected to it nearly as much.
Like
And
the-
then when we explore outside of that, that's when we come across the, oh crap, this is the symbiotic thing, and like this
And
is
the
why it's
peak-
going away, and whoops, we're fucking this
Because
up
we
real
were
bad.
to it.
Yeah.
but the
We've been
peak-
ignoring climate research.
The
Yeah.
peak is like the relatable today of like we turn on the light and we don't know why it happens, you know, and like it's expendable, but we don't think about it that
This
way.
magic
you
is just
know?
infinite.
Yeah,
it's
like-
fine.
Taking it for granted.
Right,
Yeah,
the peak,
yeah.
right.
Okay,
Ooh.
so let's
It's gonna be
let's
like
a,
blackouts occasionally.
a sim-
Magic brownout.
a symbiotic energy. What did you say?
A
A
what did I
symbiotic
say,
relationship
Ashley?
between the planet and its people.
Mm.
Okay,
I would say a symbiotic energy shapes the culture of a people.
Yeah.
a symbiotic energy shapes the. So you didn't like the culture.
Well, I guess culture encompasses a lot.
Yeah.
I'm
Well,
just like,
I think we have
the
more questions we can
milieu,
explore.
like that something like
The-
more like
The
Shapes
rise,
a civilization.
the,
maybe?
the rise and fall. So
Yeah.
a symbiotic
Yeah.
energy
That's right.
shapes the rise and
Perfect.
fall.
Yes, that encompasses what we're trying to get at. I think that's perfect.
it also implies that we are going to we're going to at least be at the rise or the fall.
Or
Like,
somewhere in between.
Or somewhere after.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Like,
we're,
that gives
we're,
us
we're
a
the top of that
lot
parabola,
of history.
the saddle point.
Because like we can do whatever we want in that. We can have like the beginning where people are first trying to figure out what this like symbiotic thing is, or even not. Maybe they don't know it's symbiotic the whole time, and that's what is
That's
the problem.
very
We find out
important
later.
to figure out where we want to be in.
Okay,
Yeah.
so-
So, keep your other ring, you're cool.
Here's what I have, and of course we'll wait
Oh, I
for
thought that was the open one.
we'll wait for Shanna to get back so that she can, have a say in it. The symbiotic energy shapes the rise and fall of humanoids worldwide.
I think humanoids are even too specific.
Is humanoids a D&D term? I mean, that's a
It's a
Star
D&D,
Trek
it's a
term.
D&D term.
It's an everything
and
term. I think.
everyone. I mean, including.
I think
Really,
life.
that's used.
So hold on. Rise and
That's
fall.
very-
of-
It's like
Human
used for like
centric.
I want to say life instead of humanoid.
Well, it's-
humanoid. I just want to say
so
life
you-
because I
Life.
like how we're saying it's connected to plants and connected to
Yep.
things. So imagine
I
too,
love
like
it.
in a post-apocalyptic sense, we've used too much of it. Like the world starts dying a little bit or something. It gives us a chance to be like, why are the birds falling out of the sky? Like, why are these plants receding? Why is agriculture starting
oh,
to
birds
fail?
can't fly anymore.
I mean,
Yeah.
we really could dwell on the
They lose
fact
their magic.
that
Penguins.
people do not think about mycelium and fungi as an entire third kingdom. We do not think about this enough. Like, we do not think there's plants and animals, and then there's fucking mushrooms. And
Oh, that
they
is the
are,
third kingdom in
like,
our.
Yeah.
they are like.
We were talking
Like,
about doing
we could
mushrooms
dwell
in a
on that
confessional,
much.
right?
I used to grow shiitakes.
I just went on a mushroom farm tour. Shiitakes, my
Dude, those
shiitakes.
pictures were dope, by the way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Were they the shiitake?
Yeah, I want to
It's
say.
so fun. It is the closest I will ever get to impregnating something. Is like impregnating a log. You get to drill in and you stuff the spawn in, and then you take the beeswax and you like splooge it on there.
That sounds like a Thursday.
And then you like pick it up. It's all like stuffed with stuff, and then you stick it on a thing. And you like stick it in the water. Oh, it's so.
Aggressive.
I feel like I just found a new fetish. Get it, girl.
It's such a good feeling. Like drill.
I know, right?
I know.
I also really like how
Thanks,
fungi
Ashley.
are, because they're so closer to the entertainments, like, antifungals kill more of our cells than the fungus that they kill sometimes.
Yeah.
Like, fungal infections are so hard to get rid of.
Yeah.
Noted.
Yeah, they're so fucking tenacious.
Yeah.
But they also could do amazing things like fungal or myco restoration. Like they
Yeah.
can
That's
totally
Sebastian.
like absorb
Oh,
all
Sebastian.
kinds of
Was he
shit
friendly to you?
and pull it out of the environment.
Yeah.
Okay, so Shanna, this is the basically the big picture that we came up with, and I need a thumbs up or thumbs down from you. A symbiotic energy shapes the rise and fall of life worldwide. Yeah, you're into it. All right, so now we're going to get into the bookend history. So the bookend history basically uses
of this arc. I like what you said, and I want to reiterate this, especially in case I think it's wrong, or you think it's wrong. So we're not saying that there can't be history that happens before and after this, but we're talking about like a big picture, basically story arc that is this rise and fall that can take place over thousands of years potentially. But we're just saying like what maybe starts this arc of the sentence that we just said, right? Like some element.
The
that's
game
about
does
booking.
not. The game is not specific about
Mhm.
that. So because the game's not specific about that, we can create whatever the fuck we want.
Cool.
But I will agree by saying that if this is the start and this is the end, then we are going to function all of our storytelling inside of that fishbowl, inside of that context. And then if we decide to get out, to go past that context or go previous to the start point, we can choose to do that.
Yeah.
I like that.
That's
Cool.
fine.
We want to encompass the rise and fall, and then after the fall, like you wanted to kind of be into, like finding like ancient stuff, like that could be a different arc we do. Would a bookend have to be like after that, like maybe like renewing our relationship with this symbiotic organism could be like the end book?
Well, I feel like
You
if
know
we
what I mean?
wanted to do, like, if we're bookending what we want right now within this world, we can, like, start when it's super prevalent, and then we can have our last event be, like, after the fall when we're, like, starting to make a new relationship with it.
Yeah, that's what I was saying.
Yeah. Well, I was thinking even earlier in that, like if we're bookending this, kind of like the energy or font or mycelium is discovered, like a relationship is forged with it, which then begins the rise up to this, and then at a fall is like the reclaiming that, right? But that leaves us so much to fill in between.
Right. And
Okay.
like
So
we don't have,
allow me to read the description of the next area. So the step 2 is the bookend history. Your history will be divided into periods. Each period is a very large chunk of time, probably decades or centuries. Describe your history begins and ends. These are your starting and ending periods, the bookends of your history. So agree on a short description for each period, just a few sentences or a paragraph at most, painting a clear picture of what happens during this time and this time. These circles exist to kind of illustrate if it was a light and hopeful period or a dark and sort of
So we fill it in.
yeah,
It's dark.
yeah. So if it's dark, basically just like through that, and that basically gives you just like because we're eventually going to be looking at a veritable timeline, and so you can kind of like look at darker periods in history, and then sort of like anyway.
Can I clarify? So we are looking to figure out where our campaign is going to start
No.
on this
No.
timeline.
No.
This is
We're
just
just
like
creating a framework.
getting a larger framework.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then we
Just
can
making
choose
sure.
later, like, oh, I'm really curious about like a
Okay.
couple centuries in, or the
Okay,
peak,
cool.
or the fall.
Alright.
So what you need to know about this is the start period, this is the end period, and all of the periods that we're about to create, probably today, probably next Thursday, that kind of thing, are going to exist in this space in the middle here that's
Probably.
much larger than it actually is now.
Maybe
This
not,
is
but
gonna-
probably.
What do you mean?
We might try to go.
For now, we're
Yes.
trying to specifically, we're talking about like maybe 6 months down the line,
For
a year
this
down
arc,
the line.
that
For this
your one
arc,
sentence
everything's
that
going-
This is happening.
For this arc,
Yes.
everything's
Okay.
going to be created in
Got it.
here, in this space.
Got it.
Okay, and it sounded like some of you already had an idea of like where this is going.
Mhm.
So
Are we feeling dark happy? Wait, dark happy. Are we feeling dark feelings about the end, or like
I'm feeling
dark
kind of
about
both.
the end?
I kind of have like two directions in my brain I could see it
may,
going.
may I read you the examples?
Yeah.
Okay, so their concept right now that they're working off of for the example is mankind leaves the sick earth behind and spreads out into the stars. Oh no, I'm sorry. So they're still.
We
I
both
apologize.
split it up and we leave. That's
No,
just the end.
so they're still operating under the previous one. So the religious refugees carve out a new life in the fertile land beyond the waste. So their start is mankind leaves the sick earth behind and spreads out into the stars. So they decided that that's a light, sort of hopeful period. It's a time of
Sounds
sort of
depressing to me.
it's a time of hope and unity because to enact that's what had to happen.
yeah.
So everyone had to come together.
It was real shitty right before.
So the end period, which they've stated is like kind of hopeless, dark, that kind of thing, is humanity is scattered across a myriad of star systems with no central connection or core identity. Isolated and alone, humanity fades into stagnation. So
I already know my starts and finishes. Just saying.
It's group starts and finishes.
yeah, I mean,
No, I know. I'm just like I've already got a vision.
What do you got?
Real
So
strong
yeah,
vision.
bring it.
So I think I see it as our start is sort of like mimicking like today, and our end is sort of like these scattered like humanoids are dwindling, and like the power, the magic like has the brain of the land again, and like we're kind of these scattered tribes, and then we work backwards through history to get there, moving forward. If that makes sense.
No.
Like so like right now we're in this like I kind of think of like the pyramids, right? And like this like time of like potentially heightened technology that like isn't there anymore, right? Or this like idea of like what that evokes and like moving backwards through the future to get to like a more tribal place.
Like a more sustainable but still technologically advanced space.
but
Is
more
it-
vulnerable. Like we're not the alpha dogs anymore.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
The mycelium is the alpha.
Yeah, like we're like
We are
like
subject
they
to it.
like the mycelium wins essentially at the end, and we are fodder to it,
Mhm.
and therefore like we have all this history, but it's like we don't have any power anymore.
So
How's
in
that-
other
And
words,
when we start, we're in this place of ultimate power that we
Yeah.
take for granted.
so
So
how
we
I
can
like
go
to
into-
how I like to view it is the mycelium played the long game
They played the long
because
game,
they were able to play the long
or
game.
they said we're not going to use you anymore because you're using this in the wrong way. But
Yeah.
then maybe the people that are left over at the end are using it potentially in the right way, but like scattered more vulnerable ways. I don't know. It just
I hear what you're saying, but like kind of how everyone was talking about like the stagnant part of like magic would or like having it recede because we were doing it badly. Like what if the future part of that, like after like we were talking about like playing through that kind of like post-apocalyptic setting is kind of like our party reawakening it and then it deciding, oh, well, I can take over the world because everything's really spread up, and then like kind of just like taking back everything, and that's
I really like the idea of like the mycelium breaking off and having different attitudes also.
yeah,
You know, like
some are like pro like
right,
being
because
with
it's
humans or-
it's lives symbiotically with us. So if we've altered its course
Mhm.
or
We've
different
affected it.
we've affected it, at least different parts of it, right?
So I
Mhm.
agree.
So you're saying it has emotion, like a different range
Potentially,
of
or
emotions
it's-
because of its symbiotic relationship with
Sure.
it?
It's not
Some-
unaffected.
Some of it's
by
just
us.
like this whole like two-legged life has to go.
Yes.
like eradicate.
And
it.
some of it, it's like we need it because there's something there we can't get.
Yeah, maybe there's interesting enclaves, right? Like, you know,
Yeah.
different races have affected it in different ways. Different classes, right? Like druids, things like that, have like shaped their corner of the mycelium in some senses. I like that as an end place. I still want to start earlier than the peak, though. Like, because I think the peak can live in it, but I want to have, at least especially for this, because I'm imagining we're building this world, right? Is having the start closer to like when we first start forming that
Discovery
bond.
zone.
Because I think there's going to be a lot of periods that we can build into this together that is going to inform the world that is the high peak, right? Because I definitely want to start playing at the peak and then see where things go down towards the fall
But
after
that's
that.
maybe more in the middle.
But something in the middle, like where I'm imagining this parabola, right, or something along those lines. And I want to, with us, create some of those events and periods that are happening up to that, which is going to give us so much flavor for what do these nation states look like,
So
and how do they connect.
I think a good beginning, just thinking about like where ordered sciences started in our own culture, is like, say several different cloistered orders discover the mycelium and start making use of it. Like, we begin there.
What if it's philosophers, though, like not scientists? Because I feel like in our society, in a way, philosophers were kind of the first people that started asking those questions.
Yeah.
Natural philosophers with scientists.
Exactly.
And the like cloistered orders, I was talking like monks and stuff. So like they were scientists.
It starts as a religious connection. Maybe there's a weird religious element to this piece.
And
for a
that's
while.
why I started with cloisters.
Yeah.
Like,
And if you have separate
I do really
factions
wanna play 'em
discovering separate different
but
areas, then they're influencing one another's trajectory.
Yeah.
And so that's where you maybe get some of the different relationships. Like one's maybe like the humans are very like dominating, and in other situations it's different. Like, does that make sense?
yes.
Yeah.
It makes sense. Yeah. A lot of it's like kind of being thrown out at once, and I think it's beautiful, and it's at the very same time delightfully confusing. So I love it. I
It's
fucking
all
love it.
happening.
I know it's all
Well, because
happening.
we're distilling it down slowly. I
I
think
can't.
Yeah.
I'm so excited that we're all on board with mycelium.
This is gonna, yeah.
Well, no more high fives. It's now mycelium.
Oh, we can't.
It was all like-
tendrils.
Yeah,
that's
that
right.
works.
Definitely
Except we all touch fingers until it touches the finger of the person that we want to high
No, we
five.
actually
There we go.
we have
Oh!
have to have our own log, at least one log now.
Okay.
I mean, it's
Is
big.
that a drinking
It's
game?
big. It's heavy, and it's wood.
Log. I don't remember how that's
Yeah,
supposed
Okay, so we're thinking a good start would be then like making contact with the mycelium, or like
Is
Okay.
there a contact moment?
that's what I'm asking. Like,
Ooh.
how do we discover
Did
it? Or,
it
like,
come
what makes it
to our planet?
That would be really fun to.
Or is it,
write that
or does it
narrative
make
for
itself
each
known to us
faction,
when it
like,
realizes we've
each
reached that
way that
intelligence
it
level?
came.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Kind of how like we
Was
evolved.
it always there?
Yeah, it was always there, but we like weren't at that level to understand it. And once we could, it reaches out to us.
Or was it always there, or
I
did
think
it
that lives in the
arrive?
events, perhaps. Right?
You know what I mean?
Like the Vulcans.
Oh, I don't know about maybe like
Yeah.
the Vulcans, but I was thinking more like just in general.
first contact.
Kind of just how like humans evolved. Like our brains didn't we always couldn't communicate.
But
so,
were
like,
we? Well, not we.
Oh, no.
Were humanoids there first, or was the mycelium there first?
I would say the I don't know. If we're basing it off of like an evolution, I would say the mycelium's there first.
I would say
Especially
just,
just evolved past us
based
already.
off of the big picture, a symbiotic energy. That symbiotic energy is the mycelium, or okay. Anyway,
Or it's a conduit.
or it's conduit, but realistically, it's like that's the centerpiece of this. So I think that sort of from human or humanoids perspectives, they were always there, and they always will be, sort of thing. They're like the Endless and like Neil Gaiman's stories from our perspective.
But the endless would be them. I think the endless would be more them arriving. Like, we are just a story in their
I thought we
history.
were trying to make
Right,
it though
exactly.
like this
Exactly.
mycelium like
Exactly.
fuels
You know.
like our world though. Like it's like earth and energy or whatever.
I kind of like the idea of it arriving, because it's like more. It's more like it's just like a throw like a foreign element into the mix of like what we understand.
So
Right.
I like that also because I've been thinking of some real dick moves for us in terms of the storyline. Because I'm definitely imagining like an oil resource analogy to this in a lot of ways.
Oh,
And when we hit like a peak level of like, oh my god, we're running out of it, or eventually realize like maybe we've reached a peak magic level where we're looking to other planes of existence or other
Right.
planets where it came from to go steal their
like we think
Right,
we
or some
think,
shit
we
like
think
that. Like,
we're
we have
gonna
to
go
invade.
like harvest the
Yeah.
mycelium as if mycelium didn't play God for us. Right?
Yeah. No,
Like, we're just
hubris.
like, oh, cool,
100%
we'll just go-
hubris of civilization.
We'll just go mine God.
yeah.
No big deal.
Yeah.
And like we'll have that
Destroy
attitude.
ourselves.
So this
Yeah.
conversation is reminding me, and I don't want to get into the why, but if you've never watched it or whatever, read it, the Botany of Desire.
Mhm.
I love that.
It's
Apples.
It's very much reminding me of the Pollen's like he wrote the book from the point of view not of humans, but he tried to write it from the point of view of the things that he was writing about: cannabis, apples, potatoes, the lily, or I'm sorry, the tulip. You know what I mean? So
Who's harvesting who?
exactly.
Yeah.
Like we plants are using you humans to propagate our species.
That's cute that you think that you're in charge.
Yeah.
That's cute that you think you're in charge.
I like that idea.
I do.
Like
Mhm.
we're gonna mine humans to propagate our, but we're also gonna
Well,
be.
if they're ultimately in control, how does that play out? And how do we just like that? That seems like a big reveal
Long
at the
game.
end.
Long
like,
game.
So,
Well, I
but-
mean, that could be what we find out later after the world is kind of like shriveled up when we like figure out why they left us is because they were in control the whole time and
Or-
they got over us.
Or hey, let's just be honest. Maybe that's not the case at all.
yeah, that's true.
We don't have to come up with a lot of resolutions to this,
We
right?
don't.
Like, so we're throwing out a lot of ideas here, and I agree. Like, I want to have, like, since we're broadcasting a world building, right? Like, I don't necessarily want to get into the nitty gritty of
We
where
don't
a
know what's
story
gonna happen.
could go, but I do
Right.
like, you know, a lot of the events that are pieces, but and see where that happens, right? But I agree.
Okay.
Like, I don't want to be like, here's the ending line
So
for those who were paying attention early.
so how do we phrase this?
Sorry,
The ways.
What's the
wa-
question that you're asking that we're looking for a phrase?
Well, it's the starting period,
Okay, got it.
right? So I was about to say the ways of the mycelium are revealed to sages of a natural order. That's all I got in my head right now. Is there anything?
I feel like that works for a start. Like,
Yeah.
Because then, and I would say natural orders.
And we can write in how the contact is made, like whether it's from you
Yeah,
know.
because that's a
I don't know.
that would
Another
be
There
events
should be
point
different
within the
points
period.
of contact,
How
like
about,
like the
Yeah.
generation of different
Okay,
religions in a kind of
I'll
relatively
get to that.
small
I'll get
period
to
of
that.
time.
Mhm.
But there should be different
I'll
factions.
I'll fit that in
How
there.
about like
So,
pioneers make contact with mycelium?
Pioneers makes it sound like.
Well, we don't like that
Westward
word,
Ho.
but like, well, okay.
Pioneers
Yeah,
of the
so you're
Arctic.
saying
Thing.
it, but like
Is it the same thing that Bill's saying? I'm just saying it in a different way.
What did Bill say?
I think he's trying to capture more of that cloistered feel that Connor was getting at, which I like.
Where like it started with like
Well,
a
you could
religious
have
ass
like one
order,
like
kind
one
of
Yeah.
section went
enlightening
and
people
found
about
it. One section like built a relationship,
Meditated
like,
and found it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it
but
presented
this is
itself
like
to it,
this is
yeah.
the 100 years where like these different
Exactly.
groups just like
Yes.
these like natural philosophers make
you
contact.
got like you have this
with-
time, and
Natural
then like the ones at the
philosophers.
farther
With
end of that, we're
mycelium.
like, shit, we don't know what to do. We gotta make contact with these people, or we're gonna like lose our time.
Yeah, and so like
we're gonna run out of
those
time.
would be like the people in the early United States where they're like, "Fuck, we have to go west and like discover everything."
Yeah.
and
Alright.
get as much as we can.
Versus like
yeah.
European cloisters.
Slash, we did nuclear research, right? And then it's proliferated over the last century, right? Where it now everybody is getting it in one way or another.
Yeah.
Despite initial
Chew on this for a second. The ways of the mycelium are revealed to separate cloistered sages of a natural order.
Well, I don't think they should all be cloistered.
Or of a natural
or of
order.
a natural
We
order.
could just
yeah.
put, like-
What?
Yeah, we can just
Yeah.
put like revealed to different like
To different orders of sages.
or just different
Yeah.
societies
Different
or even
orders of sages.
because I don't even think it necessarily needs to
Different-
all be sages if
yeah,
people start
exactly.
taking advantage of it. I think some people
There
who
can
are
be-
different,
not
There
Well, I
can
wanna
be many
look at big
sages,
words, like
but also
explore.
I
other...
like pioneer.
Different
Yeah, to
explorers,
like what's a
different,
more broad word for
um,
that? Like to
different
like pioneer is
seekers.
actually a good word. The
Seekers?
essence of that to different. Because I think some like it
Seekers,
should be seekers,
explorers.
but seekers there should be some people who have sought it out and some people who it just comes to them. So it's
Curiosity Meisters.
like agency.
um,
Okay, the ways of the
Philosophers?
mycelium are revealed
Natural
to
philosophers?
different
Thinkers?
sages, different
Thinkers.
like something like more broad.
different philosophers, different.
I
Um,
like philosophers because that encompasses like if you look at the dichotomy of like Tesla and Edison of like Tesla's like this really big broad worldview of electricity. and
Perspiration.
What
Edison
about
is, like,
what about explorers? Like,
What?
what about explorers? Is that just too
It's
broad
again,
of a word?
Pioneer. It's like because I think there should be at least one.
But it's not as bad as
situation
pioneer,
where
so we're
it's-
getting
where
better.
it should be like a cloistered, like where it comes to the monks because of
Explorers,
who they are.
pursuers,
Like
pursuers,
leaders or something. It's not leaders, but like
Peoples.
different.
voyagers,
Um,
pursuers.
Societies,
different
cultures.
bodies of
Yeah.
influence.
different.
That's getting closer to it, but I think we can.
We're so close. I can feel
I
it.
know.
All right, somebody get out a thesaurus.
Yeah,
Different,
no, I
um,
just packed away both my thesauri, and I'm like, oh shit, I brought them.
We have.
Well, we have
our
computers.
Different
There's
societies,
another word for thesaurus.
civilizations.
Damn, if only I had.
It's just over an hour. So
If only we had cell
just stop
phones.
Did you
recording,
know,
save it, and then start again.
Oh shit! Now I don't remember what actually is the point of.
Let me. So we're gonna get this last thought down, and
Wayfinders
then we will. And then we're gonna take a break.
Not in,
Yep.
Okay.
not in
The ways of the
alphabetical.
mycelium are revealed
but,
to
like,
different
like,
natural
this is super
philosophers.
What about pursuers? Like it's like a stale word, but it
But
encompasses a
pursuer
lot.
still pursuer still implies like that there
There's
wasn't
intent.
one.
Okay.
Right,
Yeah,
and especially if we want
agency.
the,
You know what?
the mycelium to be making
You
the
know what?
contact. These people weren't
Oh.
pursuing it. The mycelium like found them.
Different
So,
chosen.
So
yeah, chosen
Yeah.
kind of works. I like
Different
that.
chosen.
Well, okay. So
I like that.
so we
All
can we
Well,
can
yeah.
we can include
Some people
both.
like that.
We can include
like
Cool.
we can include both. So
Because
revealed. Hold on a second. Revealed to different natural philosophers and chosen.
Which doesn't even have to be humanoids.
Right.
It could be
Exactly.
anybody.
Yeah,
just chosen.
Yeah.
Seekers and chosen.
Oh, dude,
Seekers
squirrels
and
take
Seekers
over
and
the
chosen
world.
because there's
Yeah.
agency
Yes.
and then
Okay. So
Absolutely.
again,
That's
natural
what I was looking for,
philosophers.
like, what is it?
Some
So
like
we
Rick and
equals
Morty. Like,
accidental interaction almost.
Yeah.
And
I would say
intentional.
natural philosophers,
Seekers, fools,
semicolon,
and
the
chosen.
seekers,
Yeah.
and the chosen.
Yes.
that's in between.
Yeah.
Stumblers.
And
Semicolon.
Seekers, stumblers,
the chosen.
Yeah.
I like stumblers.
Seekers,
Seekers,
fools,
stumblers,
or
and
seekers,
chosen.
stumblers, and chosen.
Like,
So
like the sorcerers, right? It was like, you know, some people are like the wizards, which
I'm
are
just
like,
gonna put that there.
I've
We'll write it
connected
out
to
later.
mycelium, It's
Did
awesome.
you get that part?
what?
Seekers, stumblers, and chosen.
So that we've got all different
Stumblers?
levels of
Well,
agency.
first it was fool, and then I think Ashley said
Can
stumblers, and it just like felt good.
Do you mind?
No, no.
Flavor. That's where we're getting
Yes.
some flavor.
Flavors of
Some
agency.
table flavor.